Alright, well, get going, you sad abominations. Before this ends, let's get this over with. Well, before we get too down the rabbit hole, let me just explain this guy real quick. So what exactly are these? Well, if you've seen the show Transformers Prime, which if I'm correct aired in 2010, it was a show that was made to, I don't know, I guess you could say capitalize off of kind of the golden age of cartoons at the time, because, you know, Ben 10 and a couple of others that just came out. And overall, the show was a really, really good show. And Legacy has come to bring those characters back, but in a mesh kind of way. It's a big mess. So I'll be reviewing all the Prime characters that I have. As you can tell, there's no knockout because, well, you know, it's kind of hard to track something down whenever every single store that you have sold Wave 1 then automatically jumped to Evolution. Yeah, thanks a lot. So these were all incredibly hard to get and find in and of themselves. But that's another story for another day. Alright, let's move on. And let's start off with Transformers Legacy Arcee. This abomination is honestly one of the worst figures out of the bunch, and it is honestly horrible how bad it is. It is honestly comedic. Alright, let's start off with the obvious. Does it look like Prime Arcee? Well, yeah, for the most part, yes. It brings down the track very well, but the one major issue this figure has is how solid it is. Alright? Now just watch this. It's horrible, alright? I'm gonna be honest with you. It's horrible, and standing her up is even worse. So if we can take off these pieces of absolute garbage, and we get ring down to the lower waist, this almost looks nothing like Prime Arcee, alright? I feel like the legs are just too small. These things do nothing in supporting. They don't even snap in. They're just kind of wobbling around. So whenever you stand her up, sometimes you could just do a bit of a Michael Jackson right there. And this heel, this isn't even a heel. This is just a stick that points out. And this is, I don't really know what this is. Because with Prime Arcee, this would float out in the back of the leg. And it would like fill it out, and you know, it'd be kind of cool. But this is nothing like that. This is just horrible. It's honestly a really questionable design, but okay. In the back, it gets no better. Look how the backpack is just massive. And I'll admit, the Prime Toy Arcee had a bit of a backpack, but at least it was cohesive and at least it looked accurate to the show. This looks nothing accurate to the show, but I'll give them fair props. You can remove this thing and you can remove the wheel, so I guess you could have a better profile, but that still leaves this whole huge thing breaking out, and you shouldn't have to remove anything off of a figure just to make it look nice. And this thing is, it has so many problems with it that it was a big letdown at release. But anyway, let's just move into the good part. Let's move into articulation. Articulation for this figure is okay at best, I'll say that much. Alright, so the head is on a really nice ball joint, so you can get that full rotation right there at the head. It can look up pretty far, which is, I guess, you could use for like more of the more agile poses. The arms go full all the way around, out to the side, bicep rotation, 90-degree bend there at the wrist rotation, and these things are practically useless because they're so small and dinky. I guess you can call this a backwards ab crunch, but it's just so loose and it doesn't snap in at all. I don't know why they made it like this. This thing is irritating. The leg goes forward, not much due to before the crotch plate gets in the way. Leg goes back a crazy amount, and the legs can go out, so she can do the full splits if you really want to. And thigh rotation, and this is still just so sad. The bent 90-degree bend at the knee right there. I guess you could call this toe articulation, but this thing is just so useless. It's horrible. And you do get a pivot at the ankle. So if you really wanted to, you could just cross her arms, and that's another problem with the figure. The arms refuse to stay on. So if you really wanted to, you could get her into one of those, but we're not going to do that because we are not degenerates here. We're just not degenerates. Alright, let's move on into the accessory portion. Accessorize, this figure doesn't come with very much. So let's take out the ones that we did just see earlier. So these are supposed to be her arm blades that she had in the show. And this is just questionable in general. I mean, you can put them together so you can have a cool shield or like a ninja star looking thing, but it's just not that good. These look nothing like the blades. If they just got rid of these and just gave us the proper blades, I would have been happy. The thing is, she doesn't even have a proper gun. Her second accessory is actually attached onto her. Notice how whenever the wheel is detachable, you get this thing. So you get this wheel, and oh, excuse me. You may be wondering, what does this wheel do? Well, if you split it down the middle, you get whatever the hell this thing is. It generally just looks like a helicopter. Like, this is the seat, and these are the two rotor blades that help it fly up. I don't know what these are really supposed to be. It's like supposed to be like you're supposed to load in the shield right there, and it launches it out because of these. I don't know what this thing is supposed to be. I don't know what they were snorting over at Hasbro whenever they designed this. But they were snorting some of that. They were snorting up that 99.1% Walter White. I'll tell you that much. It's something. All right, let's get into the transformation for this piece of crud. Transformation for this figure is stupidly complicated than it has to be. Even though this is the deluxe size, it has no right to be this complicated. All right. So first off, you want to reattach the wheel if you did detach it. If you want to, you can remove the arm blades, but you can transform it with the arm blades. So, you know, I guess bonus. What's your first one? Do you want to keep these arms straight and you just want to fold that panel overhead? Get a better view from the front perspective. As such. Then you're going to want to come back to the back and extend all of this without trying to remove this. I really wish they could have just kept that in place just by gluing it at that point. I might just do that. You want to rotate right here at this joint. And you want to fold all of this overhead, right? And you're just going to leave that for now. You might want to get the arms out of the way because we're about to get into the real mess. You want to close up these toes because they're probably going to do it already on themselves. Bend right here at this joint, disconnect it, which this does not hold together solidly at all. But okay. Then you're gonna take it back, and this little, let me move the wheel out the way. This little tab is going to go into that little notch right there. So you just pack those together, and like I've done before, you swing the wheel forward. Same thing on the other side, swing the wheel forward. Next, you're going to take this panty crotch plate at this point, and then just bring it down. And this thing is also not tightly secured. On my figure, it does have a tendency to pop off. Right there, you can see it can actually come off. This thing is just horrible. Then you just want to rotate right here at the waist. Then you're going to come to the arms and unpeg that and rotate at the bicep, and these little tabs are going to go to those little notches right there, so they'll just rest in as such. You're going to want to do the same thing on the other side, and it's better if I get from right here. Then you're just going to want to tab the two arms together as such. Come to the top, you're going to want to get all this in front to where the crotch plate is basically touching this back plate. Then you want to get the legs in between as such, so you can get it. Then you can just tab these together as such. There's one tab right here, one slot, two up here, two slots. You know the drill. You tab it into place. And with these things are a bit finicky, but what you want to do is that you want to tab it in up top. Right there, this little thing is going to go into that little notch. This tab is going to go into the leg, and that will hold the whole thing into place as such. And it's a bit tricky sometimes because everything is just so warped, and it's, like I said before, it's horrible. And flip down the kickstand if you want to, and it just fell down. There you have Legacy Arcee in the bike mode. Now let's actually look at the bike mode. And this bike mode it's accurate, it's good, it's fun. It looks like the bike, but you know, obviously, you can just obviously tell this is just a folded up robot, right? There's not much to hide, but then again, the original figure was also just a folded up robot with just wheels. But yeah, let's move on. So if you want to, you can put these blades onto the arm if you want to, and that just does not look good. You can put them on the side if you want to, but those still don't really look good. So it rolls fine, you know. It rolls fine, and you can move this side to side. So if you want more of those like turning or slick poses, I guess you could get that. But one major problem is, like I brought up before, these don't look good. Alright, I just got the Studio Series Dino, not like maybe like a year or two ago, and it broke because that thing's also not the best. And I just used these blades because these blades actually look good with this figure, and I just tend to slap them on there because they actually look good. But that's basically just Prime. That's Prime Arcee. That's Legacy Prime Arcee, and this thing absolutely sucks. If you want to complete your Prime collection, then I guess sure, get it. But if you want to get a good figure, completely pass it. I got whenever I got Legacy Bulkhead, I'm gonna be honest. When I got Legacy Bulkhead, I was a bit disappointed, but I thought this figure was gonna be genuinely good, but it's not, and it sucks that there's been 3 other remolds of this figure when they could have just made a new mold, and they could have just fixed all those problems. But if anything, they added more problems. But anyway, that's enough of me ranting. Let's go on to the next review. And here's Voyager Prime Legacy Bulkhead. As you can see, it's a really, really nice figure. If I can just take off all the accessories, we'll go more in depth into those in just a second. If we just take those off and we look at the actual figure itself, because this thing is huge, so I'm just gonna lower this down a bit so you can look at the legs. And the legs, they look okay. And the one thing about these Prime Universe characters, these things look nothing like how they did in the cartoons at all. They've just been G1ified, if you want to call it that. And that quote G1ified look brings up a lot of problems for this figure. So we look here at the legs. These look almost nothing like Bulkhead's legs, you can tell. And of course you just have the wheels and the back of the truck right there. And then we come up to the arms, and yet again, nothing like the cartoon at all. It's just, I'm questioning what they were going through when they chose this. And the thing is, this whole entire upper piece, like this whole chest section, is just gappy and empty. This is a Voyager. You're paying $30 for this. Yes, you get a lot of accessories, but this thing is just... this thing is just something else, alright? And as we go up, I'm probably just going to have to take this off. We go up to the head. Yes, that looks like Bulkhead. He does have his underbite. He does have this. And the one thing that I find questionable is in the cartoon he has these 2 wheels behind his head, and they brought these here. Like, these do nothing. You already have these ones right here. They couldn't figure something out. I'm not an engineer, all right? I really don't know. But okay, and the one major issue with this guy is how big and fat this guy is. Look at the ratio to this. His stomach sticks out so far. If you want to get his hands in front of his chest, it is physically impossible. This guy is like an American, bro. Welcome to my 600-pound life, or in this case, welcome to my 600-ton life. Jesus Christ, this thing is just something else. Alright, let's move on before I start ranting on a whole episode, and let's just go on and move on before we get into a whole debate about this thing. Moving on to the accessories of Bulkhead. Let's just move these out the way because you're not going to do a review. I already did one on you, and that review kind of sucked. Alright, so first of all, we're going to bring in Bulkhead's mace. And this, it looks okay. It doesn't really look much compared to the source material of what they had, but it looks okay. The way this thing works is that you open it up and you can only put it on the right hand, because the way that it's sculpted is where the peg is a bit shifted so it can actually go into the hand. So if you want to put it on the left hand, you have to do it upside down. So I guess you can still put it on both sides, but okay, whatever. And then for his second accessory, you have this shoulder-mounted minigun. I'll admit, I'll be the first one to admit, it actually looks like a pretty good minigun. But I don't get what was up with the first wave and them trying to make these energon-infused weapons. These things were just kind of lazy overall in general, as you saw with Arcee and the blades. But it looks okay. I mean, these little pegs right here, you have these little pegs and you have these little holes right there, and you can tab it in there if you want. So you can give Bulkhead this giant minigun shoulder cannon, or you can just, take it off, or, let me just grab that. Put onto his arms. You can have a minigun on his wrist. But I really would have just preferred if they were able to work out some mechanism of, them being able to flip out the hand so you can get his gun arm they had in the show. And that's another thing that was missing with Arcee. There was no gun. All we had was that stupid wheel. And this guy, all we get is this lousy tiny minigun. Look how small it is compared to him. This isn't even a minigun for him. This is just straight up a Nerf gun. And bringing it down to his final accessory, we have whatever the hell this is. They say that this is supposed to be a shield, and I can kind of see. The way that this thing attaches to bulkhead is that you have two ways. You got one, you have this little tab, and that goes into here. And you can have this kind of weird flowing cape looking thing on bulkhead, so I guess, or you can go with the other option and take it off and flip out this peg, and you could actually plug it onto the arm and kind of fold it around and kind of have this right shield look. But that doesn't do jack because the peg is so loose, it's basically just a rotating blade, and this thing does not do what it's supposed to do. If you get this figure, you're probably going to have to thicken up that peg, and it's probably just going to get stuck in there eventually. So I guess if you wanted to, you can have it's kind of like in those like video games where he places it down and he gets his minigun, he points it out, he's shooting all the Decepticons, he has this giant wall shield. But that doesn't look any good because he's so damn tall and he's so damn fat that he just looks over. If you want him to actually look good, you have to get him down, and he just looks stupid as hell. It honestly kind of hurts me because this figure is solid compared to Arcee. Articulation is okay, but the way that these accessories work just don't work well with the figure overall. And this is my first time actually really having problems. The Prime universe has been shafted. Every other line in Legacy, like with I guess the new Cyberverse was okay, Armada was really good, and then G1 is just being G1. It's good, all right. But Transformers Prime is just getting shafted by these figures that do absolutely nothing, that are actually good at all. Let's just get into the transformation before I start raging and don't even post this video. Get down to the articulation for bulkhead. The head is on a ball joint, so you can look okay up and pretty down, but then his fat ass chest just kind of negates that whole thing. He can look left, he can look right, but no 360 because of his big ass jaw. The arms do a full rotation, they go out to the side. Bicep rotation, you do get a rotation here at the wrist. You do get a rotation at the waist like Arcee, which I failed to mention, but it's so useless that it's not even worth mentioning. Legs can kick forward, that far, back, that far, bend at the knee, I guess up and down at the ankle pivot, and then you can kind of move the toes. So, overall posability is kind of just your standard. That's all it is. It's just your standard. There's nothing really good about the articulation. It's okay. It's alright. On to the transformation. On to transformation for this guy. First of all, you're just going to come down to the legs, and you're just going to fold up the feet, and you're going to open up these panels. Take out this canister, fold it around, and this little tab is going to go into that slot right there after you bend the knee. Tab it in, and you can close that last piece up. Same thing on the other side. Close, open, fold out, bend, tab, close, and if you want to, you can tab those together. It makes everything a bit better, and you can call this his secret mode, and it looks better than the actual figure itself at that point. Next thing you're going to want to do is that you're going to want to bend all the way at the elbow, and yes, it's a higher degree bend, but it's not really that good. You can rotate the wrist if you want to. You'll see later on in the truck mode why. Do the same thing on the other side. Then you're just going to want to take this whole assembly out like that, and you just want to get this little black thing to come up, which is really painful because it's so stiff, and these things get so sharp. And you can just take that out, unplug that, bring this all the way, and just fold that all the way through. Then you're going to come to the head, and you're just going to push it down, and you're just going to need some clearance space for this. Untab these things on the side as such, and then you're able to just bring them both down and then combine them right here at the bottom. Then there's this little panel right here that you flip out, and that fills up the gap at the top. Wish it could have been green. It would have made it a lot more cohesive, but at this point, who cares anymore? You just rotate the arms in, close it up, flip this out, flip that down, and fold these out. And now these two tabs are gonna go into there, and these two tabs on either side are gonna go into those little slots. So as such, then if you really want to store the accessories, the gun goes right here as it pegs in. The mace goes right there, and obviously you plug in the cape, and then these tabs can go into those slots as such. And then you can fold these up, and I guess you can kind of use these as ramps. So, okay, but alright. Here's the truck mode. And the truck mode overall is, well, it's a solid truck mode. I mean, yes, it doesn't look like Bulkhead at all, and I understand that. It looks nothing like Bulkhead, alright? It just looks like a big military truck. And that's fine with me. That's completely fine with me, but if they would have just given this mode to a different Autobot completely, then it would have been fine. But this isn't Bulkhead. I'll admit the truck mode is my favorite part about the whole figure, alright? The truck mode is just phenomenal, alright? It's amazing. I mean, now I can understand why he was so fat. He was literally just built like an American. An average American walking down the street. Like I said before, 600-ton life. And this thing is just beefy. It's a brick. It's solid, unlike Arcee. And it actually stays together. I mean, overall, this figure is pretty good. But, you know, let's move on to the next legacy figure. That being Dreadwing, right? No, it's Skyquake. Never mind. Dreadwing's his brother. They're just so confusing. And now we have Transformers Legacy Evolution, Leader Class Skyquake. And as you can tell, it's a really big figure. I mean, it kind of brings back that old thing with Leader Class is meant to be just giant figures, and that's what this guy is. He's just a giant figure overall. His stature is enormous compared to most figures. I mean, this guy is just a tank, and that's all he really needs to be. He just needs to be a tank. And something I did fail to mention on Arcee is that she had light piping, and so does this guy. But unlike Arcee, his is absolutely garbage, alright? His is just absolutely garbage. It does not work whatsoever at all. So I'm just going to put down the camera, and I'm just going to take away his giant weapon, of course. And then we're just going to look at the finer details of this guy. So you can see the head is somewhat reminiscent of Skyquake. The chest is more similar to how he looked. If I am correct, it was G2. So unfortunately, he does not have the cockpit on his chest, but I'm fine with that. He does have his obvious massive giant shoulders, his long, kind of slender and beefy legs. His arms do look kind of small compared to the rest of his body, and obviously, you know, since he's, you know, gonna turn into a jet, he's just gonna have all this crud just hanging off his back. So, you know, not the worst kibble we've seen today, especially if we're looking at Arcee's mess, and I mean absolute mess of a schoolgirl backpack. But overall, the look of this is really nice, and we're gonna dive into the accessories. Now on to Skyquake's accessories. You get this extremely long, extremely large minigun. Now, to compare this to Bulkhead's minigun, there's no competition. This one obviously wins. I mean, you could give this to Bulkhead if you want to, but since, you know, his fat ass chest is so damn big, he can't even hold it. Like, you can't even hold it with both arms, let alone one itself. So, you know, I guess he's gonna have to get the tiny ass gun for now. So, I guess big minigun sticks with the Skyquake. And it does have the extra handle right here, which is on a ball joint, which you can fold down for storage, but no real storage on the massive figure. There's no real port on the back. So you kind of have to just put it on the wings, or just put it off to the side, because if you put it on the wings, it just kind of looks stupid at that point. And for his next accessory, you might be wondering, oh, what's this brown thing right here? It's like, oh, this must be the ammo clip. And yes, I would agree with you, but oh, you come back here, you flip this out, and bam, you get a brown stained sword. I don't know why they went with the brown. I mean, the light piping is brown, his chest is brown, and now this is brown. I can't wait for the Dreadwing, which is going to have a red sword, but at that point, they could have just made an entirely new sword that just came as a completely separate accessory, because this is this is just such a puny sword, I'll admit. And this goes to Skyquake, and it has these little nubs right here for no specific reason, so it can only go into his left hand, and it's kind of tough to put it in. So once you put it into his left hand, I mean, yeah, sure, he looks cool, but it's such a dinky little sword compared to the rest of his body. I mean, yes, you could say it cuts through things better because it's a small, more slim sword. But come on, that's not what the Transformers is about. You compare it to Blitzwing Sword or Metal Hawk Sword or Optimus Sword. None of them are really, functioning swords. So why should this one have to be an actual functioning sword with a big, tanky character? Give him a giant sword. That's what he needed. That's what he had in the show. It wasn't a slim sword. I mean, it kind of was, but still, even then, it was big. But this thing is just kind of puny overall. So, in terms of accessories, they're okay. The minigun is my favorite accessory, and I usually pose this guy with the minigun. With the sword, not so much. It's kind of mid at best. But let's get on to the posability before I go driven in. Now, on the posability, I have to push this guy a bit back because, can't really get his tall ass in a screenshot here. So, alright. So, might as well start with the lower way. So, move the arms out the way. His leg can kick forward about that far. Back to that far before the kibble starts to get in the way. And they are on these soft ratchets going forward and back and on to the out, as you heard. On this side, it's a soft ratchet joint, but on this side, it's soft when it goes out, but it's loud when it goes in. And you do have a double jointed knee, except this one's really stiff, and after you push it past a certain point, it gets stuck in, and you have to force the figure to go back into place, and it's kind of useless at that point. You can bend at that knee, so basically it gives you barely above 90 degrees, but if you just use one, it's semi 90 degrees. And the foot cannot go up and down at all, but you do get a toe, just toe down. And you can get a slight pivot. That is honestly pathetic for this guy. This guy's a leader, and I just can't. I just can't with some of these figures. We're coming up to the top here. You do get a waist rotation, and you can rotate it the full way around. And if you do, you can untab this, and you can get an ab crunch, but a bit loose, so it doesn't stay its place. Should have mentioned that the Legacy Arcee also had an ab crunch, but it only went back, and it was the main reason why that figure had so much BS going on with it. Alright, we're going to come to the shoulders. The arms can move out. On this side, it's a soft ratchet, but when I go down, it's just this hard ratchet. Somewhat, it's tight going down, but not as tight. It's kind of like semi-tight on this side, but this one's like, oh, it goes up so gracefully, then you got to force it down all the way. He does have a butterfly joint so he can get more action poses, which I love. Not many figures have this feature. But the thing is that whenever you try moving the tight bicep, sometimes you end up using the butterfly joint and it comes out of the shoulder pad and it looks all weird. So I would appreciate it if they just kind of tabbed in and you can untab it. I mean, yes, you could just be like, oh, but then it would be considered a full-on articulation joint. I don't care. That's what makes this figure kind of fall apart a bit. So it does have a tight rotation here at the bicep. There are two joints at the elbow, and that helps it get past 90 degrees, which is just disappointing because there's two joints in there. And the bulkhead had one joint, and he got way past 90. And there's wrist rotation. The head is on a ball joint, so he can look up pretty far when he's in his flying poses. Left, right, and this thing is on a slider joint, the transformation, if I'm correct. And the shoulders, because bear with me, because this thing's so clunky, I have to put this thing on its side. Does have a rotation right here, a hinge, a ball joint right here, another hinge, so you can get it out of the way if you want to whenever you're posing the guy. So I guess that's always a bonus. So articulation's pretty good. It's what I'd expect from a $50 figure. I mean, when you pay for Arcee, it's complicated for no reason, and it has so much stuff going on that it doesn't do what it's supposed to do. With Bulkhead, the accessories are not that good. The articulation is kind of bad, but with this guy, it's justifiable. But the thing is that butterfly joint and the weights are just kind of building up problems. If I start shaking the guy too much, it kind of just unpegs, and it's overall not that good of an experience if you want to actually like play with it. If you want to keep it as like a collector's thing and you want to just pose it around every so often, then I guess go ahead, do that, yeah. But these are meant to be played with. I mean, I get most of the audience for the Transformers is like 30-year-old men that grew up watching the show, a bunch of like teenage kids, and some like kids that their dads or that one cousin got them into. So, I mean, it's good. It's pretty good. I mean, compared to all the other figures, from what I saw with I think it was Knockout. Yep, Knockout. He's just a heavy retool of the Studio Series Jazz, and I like that figure. It was a pretty good figure. And people say it kind of improves, but it also kind of disimproves. So I'll just say the figure is okay, because you know I'm probably never gonna have it. Let's be honest. And obviously, with the new reveal of his brother Dreadwing, it's just gonna be a repaint, and it was a slight retool because the gun, instead of being, you know, a giant minigun, it was a giant cannon. And I'll admit that figure looks way better because it's blue on red. When does that not look cool? That's just straight up American colors right there. And it has the red sword, which makes it so much more better. So let's get on to the transformation so I can... On to the transformation of the figure. So first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to fold these arms in and of itself like such. So it's basically just going to collapse on itself. You're going to take out this panel, which is really nice because, you know, it actually doesn't really have any gaps. Unlike the other two figures, still even then, they weren't really gappy. So you just want to flip that panel up, and then you're just going to make sure the wrist's straight. So you can fold it in, and if you want to, you can take it out, which makes the next process easier. Move the shoulders out of the way, because yet again, it makes the process way easier. Hinge it down, and take this panel out, and fold it down. Take the arm up as such, and you can spread the legs a little bit. Pause. And you can take out this panel, which is plugged in, but it doesn't really do a good job at plugging in, so whatever, really. And then you can just tab these in as such. Little tab that goes into that slot, of course. And so there you go. And you can now rotate the legs inward because it makes the process way easier. And the thing that I noticed with this is that this, for some reason, is articulated. I don't know why. I guess it might be for the jet mode, but then again, when it comes to the jet mode, this is on the inside, so, you know, it'd be kind of pointless for the jet to start burning the other engine, so, you know. I don't really know what that's there for. When these fins are flipped up, you can't really move at all, so I guess it's just whatever. Alright, so moving on, you're going to want to untab the waist, and then you're just going to take this top panel, and you're just going to split the whole thing down the middle. And you're just gonna use the butterfly joint to get those arms out the way, and you're gonna fold everything out. Then you're just gonna rotate at the waist, and you're going to extend the body as such. It makes everything a bit easier. Might be worrisome because I feel like that may snap over time. And with you rotate the waist, you gotta get the arms out of the way as you rotate these pieces past it. Then move the arms simultaneously, and there's just a lot of clearance issues with this figure. Then you're just going to want to grab these pieces and just rotate. It does scratch up the paint a lot, so pain. And now you can rotate the waist back to where it was, and now you can tab these two halves together. Pretty self-explanatory, right? Then you're going to want to take this entire cockpit section and just hinge these out, hinge this up, and you can shift the head down. It makes everything a bit easier as you bring this overhead. As such, bring those forward a bit more, and it's going to be a bit troublesome. This giant tab is going to go in between there, and it just snaps into place. Then you can fold up the cockpit, as such, and there you go. There you have the front part of the jet. Then you're going to come back to the bottom, and the arms are going to come together, and there's two tabs that go into two slots, as such. Then the reason why the hip extends is so that you can bring these down as such. Those just tab in. The legs, you're going to rotate them. Before I do that, these little tabs are going to go right in there. So whenever you rotate it, you're going to bend right here at the knee. And you're just going to tab in. You can't really see much, but you're going to feel your way through, essentially. do the same thing on the other side. So there you go. You got to make sure these little fins get out the way because they do tend to bend backwards. And then once you do that, you're going to take these pieces and you're just going to shift them down. Make sure this stays in place. And then obviously if you want to, you can flip out the kickstand. And oh, and you're going to have to collapse the feet right here as such. And then you can bring out this one, which is a bit hard. What I like to do is I just bend this down and take that up. And that's the jet mode. And this thing is, it's a beefy jet mode. That's all I can say. Because are we sure Skyquake turns into a jet? Because this is just straight up a tank in the skies. This thing is massive. This thing just looks like it's just going to go through a bunch of rocks and just start spinning around like a giant, I don't know, could you say just, yeah, drill? So looking here at the finer details, it does look really nice. Somewhat resembles Skyquake from the cartoon, but you know, artistic liberties, and I feel like the artistic liberties taken are really good. It is a bit weird that there's a second cockpit. I mean, it looks pretty cool. And you may be wondering, what are these two tabs for? If you were to flatten this down, you could attach the legacy needle nose onto such. But since I don't have a needle nose, we're gonna have to show that off for another day. And coming here to the back, you have the 3 thrusters. This one is just it has no pegs, so you can't plug in blast effects as such. And with these ones, like I said before, you can't really hinge them in and out, so kind of pointless. The bottom profile is pretty clean overall. I mean, yes, I feel like this wouldn't be aerodynamic at all, but it's a tanky jet. It doesn't need to be aerodynamic when it's this beefy. I come in here, you can actually open up the cockpit, and you can see these tiny little seats. So it gives perspective on how big this jet is meant to be compared to other humans. So yeah, in terms of weapon storage, if you want to, there's this hole on his ass. He has 2 of them, so I'm pretty sure he's a woman. You can just plug that in as such. If you fold in the handle, push it in, and then you can have this jet with a ginormous minigun underneath it. You know, if you flip that up and he's flying around, just go just blasting everyone down, because I have no idea whose idea it was to just give this tank, or jet I should say, jet with quotation marks, just a massive minigun. I mean, at that point, just add a bunch of missiles, even more guns on this thing, and boom, you'd have the perfect killing machine. Alright, so let's go into comparisons. For the Prime Legacy characters. Sorry if my hand's a bit shaky. Here we have the Transformers Legacy Blitzwing. So you can see how they scale up to there. So, you know, even though he's the same exact, you know, price point as, you know, Skyquake, this guy can stand up for a second because he keeps wanting to do a backwards Michael Jackson, fall flat on his ass. You can see, you know, not that big. He's around as big as Bulkhead, and, you know, you might be wondering, well, how is he later class? You know, well, triple changer, and, you know, the amount of accessories that he has on him, so, you know, that's why he's so back heavy, because of these ginormous rocket thrusters, whatever the hell those are meant to be. And here we have with the Transformers Evolution, Voyager class, leader convoy, sorry. I think it's some, Leo Convoy or Leo Prime. I just call it Leo Convoy because, you know, it sounds better. So, you know, it scales pretty well with the other figures. So, yeah. So, moving on. And here we have the buzzworthy Bumblebee Pterosaur. Interesting story. I bought Pterosaur and Arcee at the same time because I had a huge amount of budget. And this figure is, it's fun, but has its own problems. But it doesn't have as many problems as Arcee. So there you go. Overall, if you were to add Knockout and Dreadwing to it, I'd say that this set of 5 would be consideringly around a 6 or 7 out of 10. Considering how Dreadwing and Skyquake would be carrying, because even though they're the exact figure, the only difference is just the gun being slightly different and different color scheme. That's the only really thing that's carrying them. And Knockout, you know, being a retool of that figure, okay. Arcee's articulation and Bulkhead's just fat ass. Overall, the set's okay, but with the ones that I have, I rate the Arcee around BS out of 10, Bulkhead fat ass out of 10, and Skyquake tanky out of 10. Yeah. finally done with these abominations. Well, that finally gives me a reason to finally break every single one of them. But, wasted all my money on such, so, And if you have any other recommendations on what you want me to review, I'll try to find it if I got the money for it. But I really know that only like a couple of y'all see this every day, so maybe like 5 to 12 of y'all are gonna watch this and just be like, wow, that guy's trying his best. Maybe some of my family members are gonna be like, oh my goodness, you did so good. And then that one guy that's just gonna be like, that guy's weird. And it's gonna be a whole thing. Cause I don't do this as a job. I don't see myself making a long time decision. I really don't. I just see this more as a hobby as I want to. I mean, I've always wanted to do this kind of thing, and now that I'm doing it, I feel happy. My aunt's probably gonna comment on this and probably be like a bunch of surprise emojis and a bunch of heart emojis. And if she is gonna do that, please do not. I don't want that to be my first comment. And now you're gonna be like, but I love you so much. Please don't. And to the 12 of you that might see this, or to how many people who do see this, thank you for clicking on this video. Alright? I know you've probably seen other reviewers review these 3 figures, but I really do gotta say thank you. I mean, I am a bit late on it. I haven't uploaded in maybe a month or 2, but I do gotta appreciate the fact that you waited this long. I had a bunch of things I had to do. Watching your siblings and, being lazy as hell. It does a lot to a guy. Mainly the being lazy as hell. The siblings are just the annoying part. But, mano a mano. I might upload a short later on today of me absolutely whooping my my recreational therapist. Because, you got problems, What do I got to say? So, might post a video of me absolutely destroying him, or posting a video of me absolutely getting wrecked by a 40-year-old man. So, mano a mano. If he beats me, then I suck. If I beat him, hell yes. But yet again, I truly do gotta say thank you to those that are actually subscribed, to the people who actually watch this, and to my family for supporting me for so long, for all the amount of dumb stuff that I do, that I barely do anything that I really do with my life, Speaking of which, being only 15, being able to get a job next year is something really exciting. Being able to get my own money, and actually being able to, get some stuff from my parents, because, they gave so much for me. But that's enough of being an emotional. This was about how absolutely kind of garbage Prime Universe is. And I'll go into depth about Armada, but the only 2 figures that I got. And I might do a review on a certain ginormous somebody. Oh, who's that back there? Oh my gosh. But, it'd be a major hassle, considering how my, I think it was my tripod kind of busted, kind of my fault, kind of not my fault, but hey, I'll try my best to review it. It's probably going to be really shoddy as much as this video was. And if you want to just see me go on a bunch of rants, might as well just start a podcast at that point with my friends. Actually, I should probably take notes on that. That actually wouldn't be a bad idea. 1 or 2 people might see it, but mano a mano. So thank you very much for watching this. I guess I'll see you whenever I do upload. See ya, losers! That was too cringe. Way too cringe. I gotta work on my outro. Fun.